Tony, who are you and what do you do?
My name is Tony Weaver Jr. and I am an author of an award-winning book called Weirdo, but in general I like to say I'm just a yapper. I'm a big nerd.
From bullied kid to a best-selling author, what's wilder, the success or surviving school?
I think that surviving is the harder thing. I'm super grateful for the success I've been able to have with Weirdo, who were named Best Book of the Year by Kirkus, the School Library Journal, Publishers Weekly, People Magazine, and I am the third Black author to ever be nominated for an Eisner for Best Kids Publication. And all those things are cool and all, but when I think about adolescence as a concept, I'm like, how does anybody make it to the other side of that alive? Your bodies are changing, you don't know who you are, nobody knows who they are, and they want to make it everybody else's problem. It's difficult. I applaud anybody that has made it through the pressure cooker of adolescence, genuinely.
You say Weirdo is based on your life. Which part has been the hardest to admit?
I think the hardest thing to admit when telling people about Weirdo, since the book is based on my life, is admitting that there was a time where I had such little self-confidence and self-esteem. Today, I feel like I love myself a pretty healthy amount. So looking back in context at how lonely I felt and how hard I was on myself, it's a little painful to reflect on. But when I think about that pain, what sits in the front of my mind is that there are kids who feel that way right now. Their lived reality is this moment in my life that I feel a little shameful about. So it helps me say, I need to tell this story because there are kids that are struggling right now that need to come out of that darkness.
Huge names have raved about Weirdo. What's the most surreal moment you've had since releasing it?
For me, I've had some really cool celebrities that have talked about Weirdo. Like I met Wayne Brady and he already knew about the book and was a fan. And those are like very awe-inspiring moments. But for me, the thing that always sticks out is when I meet a parent that is excited to tell me about how much the book helped their kid. Because for me, everybody's like, I'm doing this for the awards, or I want to be positively reviewed by the critics. To me, if a Black mom reads your book and is like, I gave this to my child, that is like my version of an Oscar. That's how you know you're doing what you're supposed to do. Because for a Black mom, especially a Southern Black mom, her baby, if she gave her baby your book, that is like the highest praise. So anytime I meet a parent that tells me about how the book helped them and their family through something that they were experiencing, it warms my heart a lot.
Let's get real. What was the moment you realized you were the weirdo in the room?
I think it didn't take very long. In every room I walk in, you look around and I'm like, oh, everybody else is not presenting in the way that I'm presenting. Everybody else isn't behaving in the way that I'm behaving. There are certain social norms that just never really clicked for me. So I think I've always known. There wasn't one particular inciting moment, but I think that it took me a while to get to a place where I was okay with that. I spent a really long time trying to not be the weird person in the room. And now I'm like, yeah, I'm around. I like to think I bring a special brand of chaos and shenanigans to any place where I appear.
Fill in the blank. Middle school Tony needed to hear
that he was okay just the way that he was and that things will get better. So often when you're young, you don't have a lot of agency. So because of that lack of agency, you feel like the things that you're experiencing in your life, that sense of helplessness and that lack of control, are how you are going to feel for the rest of your life. Someone needed to go tell that kid that you will have the power one day. You will have the ability to live a life that you want to live and to enter communities where there are other people that are like you.
What's the most honest conversation you've had with a kid after they've read Weirdo?
I was at a school and a kid wrote me a letter telling me that they were very happy about reading the book and that they were happy that I was still here because they themselves were struggling with suicide. And in the letter, they wrote to me not to tell anybody. Like, hey, I'm just telling you I'm struggling, but like, it'll be fine, I promise. Don't tell anybody. And there was this weird moment of like, little one, I am so sorry for the pain that you're experiencing. And I don't want to betray your trust, but I feel like I would be doing you a disservice if I didn't inform somebody of what you just told me. And it was something really big that I grappled with because I'm like, I have to tell somebody, but I felt bad because I didn't want to betray this child's trust. And I had the chance to follow up with the librarian at that school recently, and they said that she's doing a lot better.
Is it too deep for a kid's book?
Absolutely not. Something that gets really annoying for me when we talk about mental health is that people think that kids aren't ready for mental health conversations, even though kids are the ones being most negatively impacted by the youth mental health crisis. If you look at the news, there are kids as young as 7 years old committing suicide. And in my community, like in the Black community, suicide attempts and successes are the highest that they've been since we started measuring. So for someone to say, oh, a book that talks about suicide, a suicide attempt that you attempted when you were in the 7th grade might be a little too heavy for 7th graders makes absolutely no sense. They're struggling with the issues right now. If you wait too long, they're not gonna get the help that they need.
A nerdy kid's instruction manual for self-love. What's the first rule in that manual?
The first rule in the Nerdy Kids Instruction Manual for self-love and self-confidence is you have to know what makes you grow. I think that even though the world tries to convince us all that we're one thing, in actuality, all of us are gardens. We're comprised and composed of many things. We are all a combination of things that come together to make the beautiful experience that is our humanity. So for me, the first tip that I give kids is, if you want to know who you are, what's most important is for you to pay attention to the things that make you grow, what allows you to flourish. Live a lifestyle that allows you to embrace and cultivate those things.
If nerdy is your superpower, what's your kryptonite?
I think it's pretty self-explanatory. If nerdiness and being weird is my superpower, then normalcy is my kryptonite. The concept of normal is like this gravitational force that pushes down on everybody. When I meet people, grown adults, they're like, man, I wish I had your book when I was a kid. I might have turned out a little bit different. I might not have been afraid to play Dungeons and Dragons. This concept of what it means to be normal is something that weighs down on all of us, even though none of us are normal. If you think about it, 100% of people are weird in some way, but we all got tricked at some point into believing that we were supposed to be normal. And for me, when I enter spaces where normalcy is expected of me, that's the moment where my powers start to drain from me a little bit.
If you could confront those who bullied you, what would you say?
If I could speak to the people that bullied me when I was younger, I don't think confrontation would be at the front of my mind. We were all kids. Kids make mistakes and kids do things in order to feel like they fit in. I think that as kids, we get put in a system where we're pitted against each other. And if I bumped into any of those people, I don't think I would blame them for behaving the way that they behave. I was a product of my environment just like they were a product of theirs. If anything, my question would be if they were happy and if they were doing well. And I would hope that the answer is yes.
What's one trick for turning self-doubt into something useful?
One trick for turning self-doubt into something useful is if there's something that you feel very insecure about, you can take a magnifying glass and apply it to that thing, and we can improve until we reach a point where we don't feel insecure about it anymore. So for me, I used to feel very insecure about my public speaking skills. I would and stammer a lot, and I still say sometimes for like stylistic reasons. But by thinking about the things that made me insecure, it caused me to apply a significant amount of effort to improve those things. And self-improvement is never a bad thing.
How did video games and comics give you confidence?
Video games and comic books gave me worlds to explore. And the worlds in those video games and comic books felt more rooted in my personal experience than the world that I was actually living in. When I would sit down in class to take a test, it didn't feel like I was bubbling in bubbles on a multiple choice question. Really, it felt like I was fighting a giant monster in a coliseum, this cyclops that's like shooting beams at me. Video games gave me something to compare my thoughts to let me go, there are other people that think about the world in this fantastical way. And honestly, I think I grew up in those spaces. There's a video game called MapleStory that I used to play, and I learned more about myself playing MapleStory, exploring the Maple world, joining my guild, going on quests with my friends than I did at school sometimes. And I think there's something really powerful about that.
What anime character do you most identify with and why?
I most identify with Rock Lee from Naruto, specifically because in the world of Naruto, Rock Lee is comparatively unequipped. He can't use ninjutsu or genjutsu, so his taijutsu is all he has. And despite that limitation, he's decided that he's gonna be an amazing ninja. And for me, I think I don't pick up social cues very well. There are a lot of things that feel normal for people that just don't feel normal for me. My weirdness is all I got. And despite that, I want to make a positive impact on the world.
You dropped a book that sold out in 7 weeks. What was the first moment you felt like, I made it?
To be honest, even though Weirdo sold out of our first printing in 6 weeks, I still don't feel like I've made it. I'm like, we have more mountains to climb. When I talk to my publisher and they're like, we're looking good on inventory is good, I'm like, then I'm not working hard enough. Everyone at your warehouse should be sweating bullets. It should be like, oh my goodness, how are we gonna keep all of this Weirdo in stock? The people at the printer should be like, keep the printers running, keep them moving. For me, I'm really grateful about the progress that we've been able to make so far. But I still don't feel like I've made it. I wake up every day like I have something to prove, and that puts a fire under me.
Forbes 30 Under 30, TED Talk, Eisner nomination. What accomplishment have you been most proud of so far?
The accomplishment that I'm most proud of is something that happened before I even started writing Weirdo. When I graduated from college, I graduated with 2 degrees. And since my name is Tony Weaver Jr., Tony Weaver is on both of those degrees. And my father, Tony Weaver Sr., who only has a high school diploma, I was able to give him one of my degrees. So now on average, between both Tonys, we both have a degree. My dad worked very intense physical labor to create a foundation for me so that I could go off and accomplish my dreams. So the thing that I am most proud of is that I was able to balance things out a little bit. Every time my name ends up somewhere, it means his name ends up somewhere. And that's something that I take a lot of pride in.
You're super successful. What's one thing people don't see about your life?
One thing that people don't see about my life is that my creative process is very chaotic. Anytime I am making a book or building anything, it feels like I'm stacking a house of cards. Any errant movement, any strong gusts of wind, any earthquake, any form of instability can make the entire piece topple. Even when I was writing Weirdo, it was so fragile as it was in my hands. I don't think until chapter 7 or 8 of the book, I got to a point where I said, okay, it's a full book. Every page, I am balancing this line between completing the page that's in front of me or deciding that this book isn't worth writing anymore. It's very volatile, like I'm working with chemicals that could explode at any moment. And learning how to balance that is one of the most difficult parts of my creative process, but people don't see that. They just see the part at the end where the book is finished and complete.
What's the dumbest thing you almost posted online?
The dumbest thing I almost posted online. There's a movie that a lot of people like that I don't like. And my friends were like, don't do it. Don't do it. Do not do it. You will not win. That is a fandom that you will not win against. So I said, it's fine. I'm gonna keep my mouth shut. I'm not gonna say anything.
Over 1 million followers. What's your secret?
I wish that I had a secret that enabled me to build an audience of over 1 million followers across social media. But frankly, I don't. Social media is a place where merit is not always the deciding and distinguishing factor. There are people that I think deserve followings much larger than me. They only have half or a quarter of it. I think every day I wake up grateful that there are people that want to hear what I have to say. And as a result of that spirit of gratefulness, I try to use my platform to shine a light on people who I feel need to be heard. I think we all exist in community. So I have over 1 million followers, but to me, that just means I exist in community with over 1 million people. And I lean more into the responsibility of that than the vanity of it.
When you went viral, what changed?
My DMs. When I went viral, my DMs are what changed, okay? People get real upset with me. People get real upset with me sometimes. And sometimes they are very positive and insightful things. I get messages from kids sometimes, and my thing is, I don't have private conversations with minors ever. So if someone DMs me and they're under 18, it's like, I'm not responding to that. Not even marking that as seen. You will not hear anything from me. But I still see the message sometimes. And getting messages from 16, 17-year-olds that are like, I really needed this. Oh my goodness, you have no idea how much this book helped me. That's positive. But also what I get in my DMs are people calling me names that I won't repeat. So I don't go in there a lot of the time. It is a mixed bag. I got to put on my hazmat suit before I jump in there.
Who's the most famous person in your phone?
The most famous person that's in my phone right now? Ooh. So Matthew Cherry, who's an Oscar-winning director, he directed the film Hair Love, has a series on HBO Max called Young Love. I do have his number. Now, does he text me back? Absolutely not. But it's in there.
Prove it.
I mean, my phone is out of frame.
If your followers only knew one real thing about you, what should it be?
If my followers only knew one real thing about me, it is that I sustain myself on sugar and impulse eating cravings. People ask me like, what's your favorite food? What's your favorite food? I don't have a favorite food. Whatever my body wants that day. I'm like a stereotypical pregnant lady, all right? One day I want like Red Lobster cheddar biscuits, and the next day I want popcorn chicken from a very specific boba spot. The day after that, I really want like skirt steak or like harami skewers from an izakaya somewhere. When a craving sets itself in my mind, that's all I can think about. I will travel to the ends of the earth in order to satisfy said craving.
If you could change one thing in school systems, what would it be?
Only one. If I could change one thing in school systems, no standardized test. That's my thing, no standardized tests. If you look at the education system over the course of the last 20 years, school budgets have been getting smaller, whereas higher institutions of learning like colleges and universities have had their tuition costs balloon by over like 300%. And yet, I have to take some random test that costs me hundreds of dollars in test taking costs and test prep fees for you as an institution to determine if you think I'm smart or not. Bro, you have like thousands of kids paying you $60,000 a year. Hire people to look at my application and figure out if I'm a good fit. Stop relying on test scores. The education system doesn't know how to quantify what it means to be intelligent, and they make it the kids' problem instead of using the bukus of money that they are spending on their sports arenas to do their dang jobs. Do your job. That's what I would change.
What do you feel is the one major takeaway from Weirdo?
The one major takeaway I would take from Weirdo is that what makes you weird is what makes you powerful. Everybody's weird, and I encourage people to make their best attempt and efforts to live a life where they can embrace the things that make them different every day.
Is writing a sequel harder or just more pressure?
Writing a sequel is so much easier. For Weirdo in particular, the difficulty was I am introducing you to a world and characters that you don't know. Every page, I have to make you care about the world that you're in and the people that are in it. But for a sequel, bro, you already care. You're pulling up. You like these people already. And since you like these characters, I don't have to spend as much time trying to convince you that you like them. We can go on some adventures now. Honestly, I feel like Weirdo is the prologue. Weirdo 2 is where the story actually starts.
You've called Weirdo a love letter to the awkward. What's the next love letter you're writing?
For me, Weirdo 2 is a love letter to the misunderstood. Weirdo 1 is my critique on how we look at this concept of normalcy, how we don't serve young people's mental health. And Weirdo 2 is about how our education system tries to fit kids in boxes when kids don't belong in boxes. Why are you trying to shove them into these different categories and areas instead of giving them the freedom to be who they are? And why don't the systems that we build for kids have safeguards in place to envision them as all of the amazing things that they can be?
What's one truth you wish more adults understood about kids?
One truth that I wish more adults understood about kids is that even though they're young and very impulsive and foolish at times, they deserve to be treated with respect. You can't take advantage of a kid's lack of agency in order to mistreat them. I think that's wrong, and I understand that it takes work teachers work extremely hard, librarians work extremely hard, bus drivers work really hard. The only reason that the infrastructure of public education exists is because they are hardworking adults that deeply, deeply care about kids. But outside of those systems, kids end up in environments where their humanity isn't respected. And I think adults should work harder at doing that.
What's a compliment that makes you uncomfortable, but it's probably true?
A compliment that makes me uncomfortable, but is probably true, is that people say I have an answer for everything. And I'm like, don't expect me to know everything at all. I know very little. Do not throw me in the fire. I will mess up. But I tend to land on my feet pretty often. I'm pretty versatile. What do they say in Hamilton when he says he wrote his way out? You give me enough prep time, I'm like Batman with the pen. I can figure out most things.
You get to tell one story for the rest of your life. What's it about?
If I tell one story for the rest of my life, so what I would do if I could only tell one story for the rest of my life is I would kind of make it really broad, like Scheherazade, the woman with 1,000 stories, where she comes up with a bunch of things that exist in the same mythos. I spent 8 months in Japan studying abroad and living in a Japanese family's basement, and I genuinely feel like I could string an infinite amount of stories based on that one story and all the things that happen.
What's your personal definition of power?
My personal definition of power is the ability to live the life that you want to live. For me, when I lived in Japan, the thing that I loved the most was the freedom. At any point in time, if I wanted to go to Kobe, I could. If I wanted to go to the Pokemon Center in downtown Osaka, I could. If I wanted to catch a night bus and go to Tokyo, I could. And nobody could tell me no. Nobody could say, hey, you can't do that. The only limitations were, was my schoolwork done, and do I have enough money to pay for the train ticket? And for me, a life of power is a one in which I get to make the decisions that I want to make without needing to be beholden to somebody else approving me going and doing that thing.
Success didn't fix everything. What still keeps you up at night?
I think that even though I write books for weird kids, I internally am still a weird kid. One of the most interesting things about writing Weirdo is that it required a huge amount of personal growth on my part, because I had to go back to 14-year-old Tony and apologize to him for how much I'd been hiding him, how much I had been kind of suppressing him, and also how much I had been blaming him. I've said many times, normalcy is a gravity that pushes down on us all. And even though I'm very confident in myself now, I'm not immune to that weight, and that weight gets heavy sometimes. So for me, what keeps me up at night very often is trying to reconcile the person that I want to be with the people that I instinctively compare myself to.
You've walked through fire. Who helped you carry the water?
The joke that I tell is that at every moment in my life where I needed support in any circumstance, there was a black woman that pulled me to the side and was like, hey, I got you. Whether that's my mom, whether that's my aunts, whether that's Dr. Naima Clark, who literally taught me all of the media literacy and media critical analysis techniques that I use to this day. Whether it's people like my funders who have black women on their board, black women on their selections committee, like Tiffany Thompson, who was the first person that selected me to receive a really big grant that kickstarted my work. I think black women just like really keep me surrounded in love and support. And that's something that I'm deeply grateful for.
What scares you more, failure or being misunderstood?
Being misunderstood is the thing that scares me more than failure, because as a writer, I'm consistently trying to get people to hear me. And the idea that I could sit and put my best effort towards putting words on the page to communicate a message, and people walk away from that message not knowing what I meant, it scares me. It fills me with fear, because I think to be loved is to be understood. And very often in the literature community, black authors are not given the privilege of being understood. The way that I describe it is I talk about Shakespeare, right? People really like Shakespeare. When Shakespeare died, they built entire schools and institutions dedicated to understanding Shakespeare. When scholars looked at Shakespeare and said, we don't know what he meant by this, instead of going, dang, it's kind of trash, we don't understand it, they said, hold on, we got to go look at his life. Where was he in his life when he wrote this? Where did he live? What culture was he a part of? What people were he spending time with? What could he mean? And when scholars came back with different answers, they were like, well, we got to reconcile this because we have to know what he meant. When English evolved and people stopped speaking English in the way that Shakespeare wrote his plays in, they changed the way that they spoke English so that kids would still be able to understand Shakespeare. They said, we're gonna teach English differently so that you understand ye olde English and can understand the words of the bard, because we feel like his work is that important. Whereas for me, you give somebody a book with a black kid on the cover, I got 2 pages for you to feel like you can see yourself in this world, or else you're putting it back down. And I've seen it. I've seen kids that don't look like me walk up to the bookshelf and look at a bunch of books that have white kids on the front of them and go, I want that one, I want that one, I want that one. And then get to Weirdo and see a black 11-year-old boy on the front and keep walking, because that connection's not there, because they don't understand him in that way. So to me, I think the key to finding success and engaging readers is making sure that you're understood. But I also know that I don't live in a world where I have the privilege of being universally understood from the beginning. So I work really, really hard at that. And the idea that I would fail at that task and not be understood, I don't like it. It makes my skin crawl.
What's your message to every kid who thinks, I'm too weird to be the hero?
What I say is that as long as you are being your genuine self, you are never too weird. You're just weird enough. Weirdness is like commodified sometimes, where you say, everybody else is doing this thing, so I'm gonna go in the opposite direction. Everybody else is wearing white, so I'm gonna wear black. Everybody else is wearing bright colors, so I'm gonna wear dark colors. But if the way that you behave is in reaction to the norm, you're still the same as all the other people that are acting normal. You're just normal in like a different font. The institution of normalcy is still what determines who you are. So if someone feels too weird in that sense, I'm like, you gotta stop comparing yourself. But when you are in tune with who you are naturally, if you wake up and you say, this is the way that I wanna present, this is the way that I wanna dress, this is the way that I wanna sound, these are the things that I enjoy. If you are living a life where the way that you present yourself is led by the things that bring you joy, there's no such thing as being too weird.
What's your rating of The Sit?
I would give The Sit an 8.5 out of 10. The people, nice. The questions, great. The chair itself, I feel like it could use more lumbar support. I'm afraid of the dark.